Okay, and welcome to the June already 3rd coordination circle of the Lifeboat Academy. And uh, welcome to those who are here and to those who are going to be watching this as we post the video. And as is our custom, we start first by acknowledging the land. And in doing so, what we are really acknowledging is our interconnection, our interdependence, and a reminder that we're all in this together, us and all of our relations. And so we put that at the front of the meeting as a reminder for us to show up with our best selves. And so in order to do that, I invite you to take a moment to ground yourself and just settle, get yourself comfortable in your seat, find a position that feels relaxing and supportive. Take a deep breath in, feeling the fresh energy of the air entering your lungs, entering your body expanding. And then as you exhale, that feeling of relaxation. Take a couple deep breaths that way, feeling cool, energizing air entering your body. And as you exhale, just letting any stress, tension, tiredness, darkness, let it just melt away, knowing that the earth receives it, regenerates it, and returns it to you fresh and new. And just a reminder that that is a sample of the process that is always ongoing. We are always receiving and we are always letting go. And what we let go of is returned to us refreshed and renewed. So take a moment. I invite you to find some gratitude, find some comfort and some joy in being part of this process. Relaxing into the knowledge that this is just how things are and how things work. And in doing so, we also acknowledge a deep debt of gratitude to the indigenous cultures of the world who have kept this knowledge alive when others have been trying actively to deny or destroy it. And a moment of gratitude for all of the ancestors who have brought us here, the ancestors of the land where we find ourselves, the ancestors of our blood and bones, the ancestors of our intellectual heroes, and how we weave all those things together today, coming together in this here and now. And so I invite you to take one last deep breath in, cool, refreshing, renewing energy. And on the exhale, let go of anything which no longer serves you and come join us back in the circle. Ah, I needed that. So I'm hoping other people, it was okay for everyone else. Um, so we usually start with a check-in and uh, we can just go around the circle as I see it is Roland, April, Ronnie, me. And I think I'm gonna ask, what's your totem animal at the moment? Who feels what animal is calling to you right now? So over to you, Roland.
Our goat Judith. Over to Ronnie.
Oh, April.
April. Over to April. I meant April.
Um, an otter that lives about a city block away from me. Over to Ronnie.
I had a very special moment with a monarch butterfly last week, which is they're becoming more and more rare. So I'm holding them in my heart. Over to Ben.
I, for some reason, got an image of what are the little critters that pop out of the holes?
Meerkat.
Yeah, like a meerkat. Yep. I'm gonna go with that little. So I feel my inner meerkat today. All right. So time to get to it. I'm going to hang on, bring up the right screen, and here we go. So for our agenda today, we've done our grounding and our check-in, and we take a moment to revisit our North Star and basically answering the question, don't look at those, answering the question, why bother? Why are we doing all of this work? So our North Star, given what we've done, where are we now? And what are we trying to do together? And why does it matter? That's the question. What are we trying to accomplish together and why does it matter? Over to you, Roland.
My head is tired, so I'm having a hard time making connections between things.
And you can always pass if you want.
Okay, I think I'm going to pass. Over to April.
I think what we were doing together is practicing being regenerative, and out of that comes resiliency. I think that builds over time. And the reason why that matters is that it is in itself a kind of life force that allows us to be more fully human, I guess, and fully part of the landscape. Over to Ronnie.
I was paying attention to April and now I don't know what mine is. We are reaching out to people, offering support for building lifeboats. And it matters because more and more people are alarmed about the poly crisis and wondering about ways to take action and feel more prepared. Over to Ben.
Ditto to both. And I feel, what are we doing? I feel like there is it feels to me like there is more and more convergence, more and more groups, individuals coming out and saying very similar things, trying to do very similar things to what we're doing. And which I think is a sign that we're all tapping into something else. And so maybe that's, and actually, yeah, because I'm thinking about living systems design, and we are all tapping into something. We're not creating something. We're not inventing something. We're tapping into what comes next. And in some sense, yeah. So something that is sort of coming forward on its own power, and as a in the spirit of living systems design, we aren't inventing, we are just feeling into clarifying what's actually happening. And I think why it matters is it's the antidote to how we have been socialized, which is to deny reality. And and I guess just at the moment, I feel like there's something about being able to relax into it that I feel like I'm starting to let go of the idea that I have to come up with answers, and that it's not about coming up with answers. It's really just kind of describing the furniture and seeing where that goes. Back over to you, Roland.
I'm ready now. Acknowledging that the only constant in the universe is change. We're acknowledging that life is, in fact, an experiment. We don't have to try to make it into one because everything is always changing. And that because of that, we recognize that our actions are all iterative, AMAC reflect, and that working together, we are able to provide each other with frequent reminders to help us keep our heads together. There. Back to you, Ben.
Hang on, that was a lot.
Sorry.
It was great. I'm just my typing isn't up to snuff. All right, awesome. So having visited our North Star, we come and remind ourselves of where we are in the process. We have just transitioned into our new season. And so we have a focus for the different guilds. Heart Work and Philosophy is developing Connect the Dots Club. Principles in Governance is taking a step back and looking at onboarding. Finance and Legal is figuring out what the proper form of the lifeboat is in legal terms, and figuring out how we get the funding, buy the property. And the Farm Food and Housing has brought in woofers, and we're getting to work on what's going on here on the property. And Outreach and Network, we've got the 6 conversations starting in just over a week. So that is going to keep us busy for the next season. And the way that it fits into the high-level annual plan is establishing the legal entity, getting the property purchased, onboarding people, figuring out how to bring people in more deeply, and being able to figure out where to put our priorities and our resources, and then establishing baselines moving forward. So that's the plan that we've set for ourselves. Any questions, comments, observations? Roland, over to you.
Looks good to me. Over to you, April.
I have a question about the onboarding people who have been getting involved more and looking at our offerings to figure out how we want to employ them for outreach. Are we onboarding people are we trying to do more onboarding of people who've been getting involved, or are we getting more people? per se. And are we looking at our offerings to figure out how to use them to help onboard people? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm going to hold to the circle, and because I think we can answer that as we go.
Over to Ronnie.
Yeah, so I think continuing to onboard people who've been getting more involved, and also looking at all of our different offerings to see how we want to do outreach on like through the various channels. So we have already so many graphics and things that we've made that we haven't used in a while, for example, that we could put out there. Actually, it sounds a little bit like aim, act, reflect, like a more precise aim, act, reflect of our materials to see. We haven't done that in a while, so yeah, that sounds good to me, and all of it sounds good to me. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, and I think this is also it is aim, act, reflect, and how the ideas evolve. I think this is almost more, it was a seasonal goal. Actually, you know what? I think that's the thing, is this was part of our annual plan, involves some things that are going to get done seasonally. And this is, I think, something that we could almost check off, because I think the 6 conversations and the Connect the Dots Club, plus, for example, like what Roland did with the stories, like that is the result of this part of that section of the annual plan. So it is both about how do we reach out to new people, and how do we bring the people who have expressed some interest in more deeply. So yeah, it's interesting how it takes shape as it makes sense. It looks different from the front. It looks different from the before than it does from the after. Cool. So are we good to move on to the next? And that is reviewing the calendar. And I stop share here. Yes. Do you have something
I'm
to
just
say?
saying hi because there's nothing going on, and I'm
Oh,
trying to.
that's right. Don your funny hats. All right, so we have some schedule changes that have been made. So we have a new experiment with the coordination circle. Going from today forward, we're going to stick with the Monday 4:30 time, but now we're going to every other week. And so that means it'll be our next coordination circle will be, that's not this month. The next coordination circle will be on the 17th. And then we'll have to figure out what to do for the July long weekend, for the Canada Day weekend. So that's a change. I also removed, we had the vestigial hive mind time that never got used. So I've removed that from the calendar. And the one thing, so partly our coordination meeting it's following the heavy week. So if we go, the alternating weeks are, take my stuff off of here. The alternating weeks, we have outreach on Tuesday, navigation session on Wednesday, finance and legal on Friday. And what I am pondering, I'm not even going to put it out as a proposal, but a question I ask is, do we want to switch the Heart Work and Philosophy meeting, since no one is attending the Principles in Governance? Then we could have basically a week where we have, why is that still showing up? It shouldn't be there. Anyhow, yeah, we have if we switch Principles and Governance and Heart Work, then we would have 1 week where we would have 3 guild meetings in the navigation session. And then the next week we would have our coordination circle. So just thinking about if that might be kind of an efficient way of doing it. Otherwise, we can also remove the principles and governance, and then we would have 3 meetings on the heavy week and 2 meetings, coordination circle and heart work on the alternate weekends or alternate weeks. So just putting that out. And then actually just we'll go around the circle. Is there anything missing from the calendar or any thoughts on calendar issues? Over to you, Roland.
So no issues with the calendar. We had talked about actually having the coordination circle on a different day. So I also have a question. Do we want to just let go of that and stay on Monday, or do we want to revisit moving the coordination circle meeting day?
My understanding is that that decision has been made, that we all agreed that we're just going to stick on Monday.
All right, and we'll do circle to make sure that other people have the same understanding. So, and in terms of responding to your question, Ben, I think it is whether or not grouping everything or spreading things out is which one is more desirable. And I might need to sit with that a little bit because I'm not sure. Grouping it would make the alternate week feel like a week off, and spreading it out would make it feel less meeting heavy because anyway, you know how I feel about meetings. So I currently am of 2 minds about that. I want to say something about the Principles and Governance Guild, but I won't. And I would be okay with removing it. I'm just a bit shocked that there aren't more people who are interested in it. So over to April.
So what exactly is the question?
The question is right now, and actually I'm going to remove this because that should not be there. That won't mess things up. So the way that we have our schedule right now, so this week we have the coordination circle, and then the only other sort of guild thing is the heart work and philosophy on Thursday. Next week, we won't have a coordination circle, and we will have outreach and network and finance and legal. And we have scheduled the principles and governance meeting, but they're moribund right now. Nobody's attending them. So what I was suggesting as a possibility, not even proposing, just I'm suggesting as a possibility, if we move the heart work and philosophy, then we would have one meeting that would basically start with the coordination circle and not have any lifeboat meetings the rest of the week. And then we would have 1 week where we would have outreach, heart work, and finance, plus the navigation session. So it would make 1 week meeting. It's just what Roland is saying. 1 week would have 4 meetings in it, and then 1 week would only have the coordination circle. And the only reason I'm suggesting it is because, or putting it out there, is because we talked about it's nice to have the coordination circle after the heavy week so that we can be kind of wrapping up the work that was done. So anyhow, but I agree with Roland's breaking circle because I was answering your question, but back to you, April.
Well, I like putting all the meetings in 1 week. I am loath to let go of principles and governance. I think it's central to the whole thing, but there's something about it that's not attracting folks. It's not attracting me because I've run out of time. Although I have huge interest, but no time. So I don't know if there's a category for that. I'm wondering, is there some way to discuss the principles and governance situation and then make a decision on whether it needs a meeting ever once in a while or whatever. Anyway, I vote for one heavy week and one not heavy week. over to Ronnie.
I don't have a strong feeling either way because it doesn't change my meeting schedule as it currently stands. So I whatever y'all want to do is fine with me. Um yeah. Also, in terms of the calendar, I just want to mention that we currently have 6 people signed up for the 6 conversations series, and those 6 people are not any of the people in this room, which is
Wow.
very exciting.
Mhm.
Which means if they all showed up, we would have 10 people, which is an awesome, like that's awesome. So
Mhm.
and hopefully the list will continue to grow because Roland just posted the graphics today. So anyway,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
celebrating that.
Great.
Over to Ben.
Yeah, having suggested it, I'm with Roland on, I think I want to sit with it about whether we do a heavy week and a light week. I can really see the advantage on both. One, yeah, I'm completely ambivalent because I can see why make one week feel really heavy, but at the same time and then I guess also a concern I have is that on the off week nothing will happen, and then basically we'll slow down to halftime. So anyhow, but at the same time I think there is a logic in moving it. So I kind of feel like I would need to live with it. It sounds, yeah, I guess in the absence, Ronnie doesn't have strong feelings, Roland has mixed feelings, I have mixed feelings. And I'm thinking, in the absence of certainty, why don't we not act on it and just keep with the status quo? Um, I do think the principles in governance, I think, is really important, but I also feel like everything has a season, and and we are marshaling our forces right now on 3 really important and really challenging things, right? And the 6 conversations and the Connect the Dots Club has the potential to create the need to come back to principles and governance, right?
Yeah.
So, or generate interest in the principles and governance stuff. So if we were to remove it from the schedule, we could revisit. I'm not saying that we remove the guild. I'm just saying we agree over the summer for the next season, because we're working in seasonal planning. So for the next season, we just say, okay, principles and governance is taking the summer off, and we can come back to, revisit that after the 6 conversations. There may be a natural sort of next steps that comes out of, or the Connect the Dots Club. Either one of those might have a natural next step that makes more sense than for why principles and governance needs to meet. And I think going along with that, there also might be, maybe we haven't clarified what that's really about yet,
Yeah.
you know, and that's why there's not a lot of interest, because there's not a lot of understanding about why is it necessary. So anyhow, I'm going to go once back through the circle, because there was a lot of different things that have been brought up. So I want to give everyone another chance just to respond to what you're hearing. So where are you at? All things relating to calendars, where are you at now? Over to you, Roland.
I am agreed to maintain the status quo in terms of moving the hard work uh, until we get a better set. Like April has been very clear. Ronnie doesn't mind either way, and so it's you and me, Ben, and that would be the deciders, and maybe a thumb war if we're tied. But right now, keeping things as they are until things get clear. And I'm okay with removing the principles and governance circle meeting time, and I have a question about that, and I know this is only calendar, so I will hold my question around that for later, unless I can just say it now.
I'm gonna say you can say it now, and then that doesn't mean we have to take it up now. We can
Perfect.
make
Okay.
make a choice.
Okay, so that just earlier in this meeting, we actually talked about onboarding and the onboarding process and maybe looking at it again, and that is a principles and governance thing. So then what? What do we do? How do we handle it? So over to April.
Well, I agree with letting principles and governance go for now and then coming back to it, because I think the sense I have is sort of the same thing as Ben said, that after we do the 6 conversations and the connecting the dots, that it may well be more obvious to people that we need that and that they have a part in that. So I think that's a good idea. And I can't remember what else I'm supposed to be.
Any last thoughts for when we're talking about calendar stuff? If you have anything to share,
No,
feel free.
thank you. Over to Ronnie.
I'm good. Back to Ben.
Oh, okay. I think what I will do is I will actually set whatever the principal and governance meeting would be, say, starting in September. I'll put that on the calendar for like as a reminder to come back to it, and we'll kind of just only remove the ones over the summer and come back to it then. All right, very cool. So going back. All right, so we've covered reviewing the calendar, guild reports. And I think in this context, it can be guild/project reports. And so we can put any conversation around the 6 conversations or Connect the Dots Club in Heartwork and outreach. And so I guess a quick update from Heartwork and Philosophy/6 conversations. Where are we at the moment?
Well, we're moving ahead with what was planned for 6 conversations and starting the whole system next week.
So Connect the Dots Club is Heartwork, and we're putting 6 conversations in outreach.
Oh, in outreach, sorry.
Right. So
we're moving ahead on connecting the Dots Club and thinking that we'll start doing planning for that in detail once we start off the 6 conversations, which is taking some focus at the moment. Am I right in that, Roland?
Yes. Well said. Well done. I approve.
Any questions or comments, Ronnie, on the Connect the Dots Club stuff? Cool. And I think my understanding is that we'll be at each of the Heartwork meetings, we'll be talking about the next steps for the Connect the Dots Club, right? So the action item will be well, and actually I think so where we are now with Connect the Dots Club, what we talked about was brainstorming favorite books and articles.
Oh, there was also an outreachy part to that
Right.
too.
Right.
So it was like ways of engaging people using social media and using polls to gather recommendations. Was that it?
Yep. And it's written down. That's the brainstorming template. Yeah. And then coordinating. So we have 2 action items that are already in Asana that came from that meeting. All right, cool. I think that is a good update. Anyone have any last words on Heartwork? Or moving on, next up, principles and governance. I think we've already discussed this. I think we can just sort of skip. It's going to be basically the update for principles and governance is it is on break over the summer season, revisiting in the fall. And moving on, finance and legal. Oh, so one update is that we no longer are under a purchase agreement. Steph has decided to let the purchase agreement run out. Is still interested in being involved in the project and has requested that we meet with her probably next week sometime, or I guess maybe this week, maybe next week. So in some ways nothing has changed, and in some ways everything has changed. But we always knew that we were under we had time constraints, and there was uncertainty about whether or not the purchase was going to happen for here. So we continue. It is not a done deal that we aren't going to be able to purchase, and it's also not a done deal that we are going to be able to purchase. So yeah, nothing really new there. And we talked it over in the finance and legal, and our realtors and finance and legal guild are all of the same opinion, which is we keep forging ahead with figuring out the legal structure. It's the faster that we do it, the more likely it'll be for us to be able to purchase this property. And even if we can't for here, we will at some point need to have that in place. And so it will increase our ability to be able to take action when and if the opportunity presents itself. So that's part of it. And then we had, I think we're still, it's one of those, I hope it's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of cha-cha. As we get into the legal structure questions, it seems like we maybe are making everything more complicated than it needs to be. So we're I think taking a look back at some of those basic questions about, is it a for-profit or a nonprofit? Is it a co-op or a B Corp? But we're doing it with better information every time we look at it. So we keep coming back to some similar questions, but I think we're coming back to them with more knowledge. And so I think that my take on where we are on the finance and legal side of things is we had a really interesting conversation. It's stirred up a lot of possibilities, and I'm still waiting for myself for the dust to settle. And I'll throw it over to Roland for any additional take on it.
The only constant in the universe is change.
Yeah.
And I think you said it really well, actually. Everything's different and everything's the same. Yeah. Just the details have shifted around, but the essentials haven't really changed. That's all I wanted to add. And do I open it up for questions, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have questions? Over to April.
No, no questions. Over to Ronnie.
No questions. It's just wild, like the journey with the property and the previous property and now being at a distance as it all unfolds. It's just really interesting. And yeah, everything changes in one way or another. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's all. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, actually, the one thing I want to add is I am feeling, I will give a little bit more detail. There are a few ideas that are coming forward. One is about the nature of investments that we're looking for and what we're actually trying to do. And one of the phrases that I've been using, I've been toying with lately is we're challenging people to trade in their privilege for connection.
Mm,
And the kind of investment that we're looking for are people who are willing to trade in privilege, some sort of sense that they get special protection and that they get special returns because they start off with more privilege. And that's part of the challenge, but I think part of the challenge is I think in finding people that are open to that. But I think actually finding the language for that
right.
is really useful. And so I feel like the combination, I think we were talking a lot more about what it would mean to be a nonprofit and an educational institution in with that language of, getting people to trade in or cash in privilege for connection. So anyhow, it's interesting. Anybody else want to kind of another kick at the can? Anything else to add?
No,
All right. And next steps are we are having an internal conversation in the guild before scheduling our next meeting with the lawyers. So the next step is basically waiting for the dust to settle internally, and then hopefully by the next guild meeting, we'll invite the lawyers in. Ronnie, did you have something you wanted to throw in there?
It just the who are the people willing to trade privilege for connection? It made me immediately think of Bernie. And I know we haven't been in much contact with him recently, but he and his wife did that, are doing that in a really big way. And so I'm curious what people to sort of put on a Bernie hat and think of like how, if I were in that position, how would I be thinking about it? How would I respond to different kinds of language
Mhm.
around that? Um, and and it makes me think like I don't want us to try to convince anybody that they
Right.
should do that because we want to find the people who are like, I'm ready, can I write you a check?
Mhm.
Which is what we've been saying from the beginning. Great, write us a check. But yeah, so anyway, those were just some thoughts that came up. Back to you, Ben.
Cool. All right. Next up, farm food and housing. Roland, do you want to do this?
sure. Um, well, we have uh, Janine and
Lisa.
Alviza,
Aliza.
Eliza. I don't know why I'm tripping up on the names. Who arrived yesterday and are lovely and new, and we're just starting to show them around. So they will be here for approximately 3 weeks each, and yeah, that's fun. Um, so uh, I think that's all I can really think of. Anything you wanted to add, Ben?
I think the on the ground report is we've been making progress on the field garden, but it's been so rainy that it's
Oh yeah,
really limited. So
yeah. It was
we're a
totally
bit
flooded
behind
this
on,
morning,
yeah, there were puddles. There were the pathways were flooded this morning.
as if it was winter.
Yeah. So it's looking better. We got totally dumped over last night with just a buckets. but yeah, that's just the update that we're making progress. It's just slow. Everything takes longer than you think it's going to, turns out. So, and then finally outreach and 6 conversations.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, we completed our seasonal review and we talked about two different things, meeting efficiency and engagement, and actually they overlapped quite a bit. And there was a lot of good connections between what we were talking about and just generally talking about engagement in ways that I think is useful for other guilds to read, to review, and also contribute to. So yeah, that went really well. I've been making changes to the website and I'm curious what people think. So you could either look at the website on your own, or maybe at the next outreach meeting, we could go over some things I've moved around and added on the website. We also have a couple other asks out to other guilds, including asking finance and legal for feedback on language on the website, specifically around investing, which also connects to what Ben was just talking about in terms of how are we thinking about investing and what language are we using. And then curiosity around the Connect the Dots Club and the Heartwork Guild's role in magazine curation, so synthesizing articles and things like that for the website. And just some updates. The newsletter went out last week. The invite to the 6 conversations is out, as well as some stories on our Instagram and Facebook, thanks to Roland. And as I mentioned, we already have 6 signups, which is awesome. Yeah, I think those are really the updates. If there's anybody knows who you think might be interested in attending 6 conversations and you haven't already sent them a personal invite, please send them a personal invite. And or you could just forward them the email that I sent.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's gonna shape up pretty nicely. Can anyone think of anything else from the outreach meeting, Ben? Or Roland?
I did I put together a spreadsheet for actually I'm gonna stop share. I think I've got it up here. Yeah. So I thought it would be handy to have single point of reference, since we've got the multiple. Some people have signed up for everything. Some people only signed up for some meetings and not others. And so I just put everything together. So yeah, we've got 10 people. If you count the 4 of us, then we have 10 people that are signed up for multiple meetings. Most of them have signed up for most of the meetings. And there's somewhere they only signed up, like, I think, and I'm not sure if Kath G is actually Kath from, I don't know Kath's last name, but there are, I am not sure who Theo is or Kath is.
I know Theo.
Oh, okay, cool.
Theo's from Good Grief Network.
Cool, very cool. And we also have, and I forwarded the invite to Brad Smith and to the Community Justice Group. So Rosabella is from the Community Justice Group, and Brooke may be dropping in. She can't commit to all of them, but she might drop in for some. I told the community justice folks, since they're so familiar with circle process, I thought that and I already have a relationship with most of them, that it would be okay, if they dropped in. Who else? I forwarded it to somebody else, and then Meaty has connected us with the Co-Fund Eco folk, and she's actually suggesting, I've signed up for, there's a plenary session on the 10th, I believe, so the day before we start. And that's actually the group that we learned about the 6 conversations from. And she was saying that some of them might be interested in attending ours. So anyhow, I plan on mentioning it at the on the 10th. So we might even have some people last minute who sign up. And I was wondering if we the facilitation team should schedule another meeting between now and the 11th. So we should put that on the radar. That's what I got to add. So over to you, Roland.
Oh, pass over to you, April.
I think I pass as well.
All right.
I'm good.
Cool. All right, then that takes us to the end of guild reports, and we are coming up on the time. So just looking quickly to see, we've done our update on 6 conversations about lifeboats. Oh, I had a random, actually not random, in sending out the 6 conversations invite. One of the people that we heard from was Ardell Broadbent, who does the Intentional Communities directory. And she recommended that we reach out to Freedom Cells. And I took a look at them, and I would like other people. So I guess partly I have this, I think this is a coordination circle question, is so what happens in this situation? Somebody makes this recommendation. It's who takes it where, and do we always follow up? Is it like any connection is a good connection, so we establish the relationship, or is it something that gets talked about in outreach? Um, and what are the criteria for who we talk to and when? And to put some, I think I might have it up. Give me a second and let's see. It's really interesting. Here we go. I will. There is something that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit about how they talk about things, but there's nothing explicit that should make me concerned. So the Freedom Cells are local peer-to-peer groups, typically consisting of 8 people, organized in a decentralized manner with the goal of empowering members through education, peaceful noncompliance, and creation of parallel institutions. All sounds good, right? And but then when you get into it, there are sort of subsections on prepping and community defense and local power grids and hardening communication systems so that they can't be hacked. And they're all things that are fine, but there's something about it that kind of makes me a little edgy. And they talk about, they do have, like, ensuring food storage, encrypted communications, emergency plans, self-defense. I'm not opposed to any of those, but there's something that kind of gets my feelers up. And then they have their principles. They're decentralized, local, solutions-oriented, nonviolent, and apolitical. So, that seems fine to me. So, yeah, anyhow, it's just as I'm not sure. I bring it up here in the coordination circle to say, where does this go in terms of furthering the conversation? So over to Roland, thoughts, reactions?
I wonder if they are inspired by the parable of the sower. And I'm wondering about I'm making the assumption that they are US based. And I am wondering about the climate in the US, where they're holding more explicitly, we're on an island and a small community, but are they holding the the sort of aggressive tension that I'm imagining from what I'm seeing in the news, that they're experiencing with sort of more, I don't know the word to use, but talking about prepping and at the same time talking about doing the also and of talking about all the other stuff. Anyway, coming back to brain tired. So that's my first impression. So I'll just pass over to April.
Thanks. I think that decisions about who we align with need to go through outreach and maybe also principles and governance. Because there's some real important principles that are brought up here. There's some real, for me, that this makes me feel uneasy too. There's some ethical stuff. And it's, to me, what I've seen on the surface here, just from the website, looks like somebody's taken like a to-do list of how to form a cell-like structure and just applied it, but to nothing. Like, I don't see the underpinnings of this, except in what you say about the prepping, the hardening of around communications and access and that sort of thing. It makes me feel uneasy. There is, to me, more of a, not quite a cult-like edge to it. And I sense that their ethos is not ours. But I'll think it bears more discussion. And I think it's probably time to work out some criteria for what, at what points we decide to align with other groups or other networks or other systems. And there needs to be a deeper look taken at this, I would say. Over to Ronnie.
I'm definitely going to make an account because I want to check it out and see what's going on. I'm really interested. I don't personally feel any red flags. There does seem there, I do get a sense of sort of a bit of militancy. It's very like, yeah, it feels militant is the word that comes to mind. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. There was a lot of militancy in the lots of different movements throughout time. But yeah, I think I agree about having that conversation of how do we know when it feels right, when it's appropriate to reach out and get involved with a group. But they have quite a few members. So I want to make an account so I can see the map. Like I want to see the map of like, where are these people?
Yeah.
Especially being in Texas. I mean, it's the authoritarian crackdown is happening. So I'm really curious to see who's out there. Yeah, back to Ben.
I just want to say how much I love Circle because it's interesting, the different perspectives. It's really helpful to me. And so what I'm hearing is we're in agreement that, and this is a tension, I think. And actually I was just thinking about the process itself, which is I gave voice to attention. This was recommended. I checked it out. There's something in it. I can't point to anything that is like, well, hell no, they said this and they're off the list. And brought it up. And I'm hearing, there are all sorts of ways of, I was just thinking the story that we tell ourselves is not the reality. And any group, we get probably misinterpreted for what we're trying to do. because of words we choose. And, you know, how do we respond when people say, well, you say lifeboat and you're thinking about throwing people into the water, you know, like that is one of the things that we got about, well, how can you be the lifeboat philosophy is about who gets on the lifeboat and who doesn't, and like, are you really behind that? So yeah, very interesting. So what I'm going to do then is I will add this as a tension into the outreach guild, and we'll see where that goes. And I think it's also I wanted to say being relational, or thinking relationally as opposed to binary. Like, we don't have to have a are they or aren't they on the list, but it can be what kind of relationship do we want to have with them.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we can have a relationship and it can be more distant. We can have a relationship where there are some, you know, some limits. So anyhow, I think thanks a lot. This is really helpful for me. So I believe then that brings us kind of to the end of our agenda, unless anyone has any last things that they want to talk about. So just once through any last items, any burning issues that you need to get out. Over to you, Roland. And you're muted.
I'm good, thanks. April, over to you.
I'm good as well, thank you. Nothing else. Over to Ronnie.
I'm good. Back to you, Ben.
Awesome. I think we're all good then. So that concludes our coordination circle for this week. We will have our next coordination circle in 2 weeks. So on the 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And the schedule for the guild meetings will continue as has been, where with the exception of principles of governance, we're not even going to put it on the calendar for the summer. And the projects will continue as they will. And who's going to I guess I convene the first one, so I will convene the meeting of the facilitators for the 6 conversations. I'll put that on my list.
Do we have a date for that?
No, I'll send out an email and see what works for
Thank you.
folks. Do that offline. All right. Thank you all for your time. And actually, checkout. We should do a checkout. Anyone have a good checkout question?
What are you taking away with you?
Who wants to start? We'll edit this pause in the
I'll
cutting.
go. I want to build a water pipeline from BC to Texas as an experiment because y'all are getting so much water and we need so much water. That's just from me and Ben talking about the weather at the beginning. Other than that, I have nothing else. Over to Ben, I guess.
What am I taking away with me? I'm taking away lean into the process, and also I think our checking in on the North Star, it's just cool what comes up when we give ourselves a chance to reflect. So long live the process. AMAC reflect. Over to you, Roland.
I think just acknowledging that every coordination circle, there's always a lot going on. So over to April.
Yes, there's a lot going on and we are coordinating, which is the purpose of this. So I believe the process is being effective in that way. And I also really like the North Star question because it brings purpose and meaning into every meeting then. And it's easy to forget that, especially when I get stressed, I forget that. So I appreciate that being there. Thank you. Back to Ben, I think.
Awesome. Well, and that's it. Goodbye, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks. Well, see you before then, but again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.